All right, guys, welcome back to the Nightlife Podcast. I am your host, Kevin.
What's up, guys? It's Dan here.
And Jack again.
Guys, welcome back to the Nightlife Podcast. Dan, what episode are we on?
We're on a couple.
A couple.
What is it? 7, 6, 7?
I think we're on 6. I think this is episode 6. And I am grateful, and we are grateful for everyone's support for the past couple episodes. Thank you for just coming back and tuning in.
We just keep coming back, so I hope you guys keep coming back.
Well, I mean, we like to come back because it's just us boys talking and chilling. But hey, yeah, thank you guys for just supporting us. Again, we've doing this for 6 weeks. Actually, minus the weeks that we didn't post. Technically, we've been doing this for 8 weeks, which is weird that we've spent 2 months of our lives doing a podcast. But,
I mean, I guess so, yeah.
But hey, I think it's starting to pay off, literally, which is cool. Because again, we did get sponsored. We just need to get all that.
We just have to actually do the sponsor.
Yeah, we have to do the sponsored bit, which is there's some back end stuff that I have to coordinate with the guys with. But overall, I mean, hey, yeah, we got sponsored. But how have you guys been? How's work going for you guys?
It's all right, I guess.
It has not been terrible.
Ooh,
No, it hasn't been.
lucky for you. It's gotten busy over here on the West Coast, the West Coast.
I shouldn't say it hasn't been bad. The last 2 shifts I worked haven't been bad. The Thursday, Friday before that were atrocious.
Atrocious?
That is true.
In what sense?
I had EMTs on Thursday and Friday bring in patients that probably should not have come to us. They probably should have went to the trauma center.
Whoa, that's fun.
And I ended up with them, so cheers to me.
Cheers
for
to
having
you.
the worst luck.
And they're like, hey, you're an EMT too, right? You know what to do. Here you go. Stop. Fix him.
Don't know. They don't know I'm an EMT. They just drop them off, and I'm like, what the fuck, guys?
Is this
like,
the hospital-based EMT service, or is it the squad-based?
We get both.
It's been both, which is unfortunate because I would hope that the organization that does the pre-hospital EMS for our hospital would know better, but
not always.
EMS is its own little conundrum itself that we can get into later on in life.
I'll just say this: they should know better. They're getting a paycheck to do this, and it's their job. But sometimes people get lazy, man, and that's where patients and nurses and everyone suffers.
That is actually
blows my mind
true.
how some of these people have these jobs and bring human beings to a hospital to seek medical attention.
I mean, you got to look at it from their standpoint too. These guys are riding the box. They're tired. They're on a 24. They're burnt out because they're not getting paid enough. They're not doing a lot. I mean, this is just from our California standpoint.
I take that into consideration, but there's some people who there is zero common sense. Like if a patient has an injury of a certain, caliber, you don't do certain things. That's just human common sense.
I understand Dan's point of view, but I've done both sides of it, and I understand. And I've seen, like, these EMTs or paramedics or whoever bring in these patients, and I'm like, what was your thought process on this? Because if I was doing this, I would not have come here.
Activate a trauma alert and go to New Brunswick.
Like that, and that's me as a volunteer. Like I didn't get a paycheck riding an ambulance. That was me just making the best decision for my patient, even if I have to go, 40 minutes out of my way to go to the nearest trauma center.
No, but even basic things, Jack, if you're, volunteer EMT, you bring a patient to a hospital, you're going to be able to tell me why you're bringing that patient to me. These people, I literally go, why, what's the patient coming in for? And they go, oh, I don't know.
I hate that. I fucking hate that, dude.
Like, I don't know. What's their name? I'm not sure. Did you check their wallet? I have no idea.
Or they come from a nursing facility and they do not know why. I mean, like, okay, so sometimes the nursing facility is dumb on their part, but these EMTs, you guys got you need to know why you're bringing your patient to the hospital, because we need to know what we need to do. Like, they brought in someone who was like super fucking tachycardic or hypotensive. It was a BLS run. I don't know why fire didn't, go with them. but they're like, and they had a fever, so that meets the protocols of sepsis. I'm like, and you're just chilling there. You don't know why your patient's fucking here. Like, come on, bro.
To be fair, I don't run a lot of I didn't run a lot of nursing home calls because we didn't have those in the area I was at least when I was doing the BLS. So that's fair. From what I've heard, it's next to impossible to find a nurse at a nursing home at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're trying to transfer a patient out.
Oh, that's not my
I,
patient.
yeah, I get that part. I understand
Yeah.
and I sympathize, but like,
There's also a legality that there's a form that's supposed to come with them fully filled out from these nursing facilities that is a
and
complete
there's
legal issue, and you can get the facility checked on by, like, higher, authorities that they're actually running properly.
Yeah, exactly.
it has been way more than 1 or 2 times where they've come in from whatever facility, and I'm not naming any one particular place. They've come in from all of them
It's
with the
a
form.
yeah,
The form is either not fully filled out or improperly filled out,
exactly.
and it just hinders our progress. It's like it has vitals from 3 days ago. Okay, so you didn't do vitals before the transfer,
Yeah.
or it has no known allergies, and we pull them up in our computer system, and it's like a list of allergies, 15 things long.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's, like, the only thing that kinda sorts that out is, like, being able to pull up stuff in the system. If we had a universal system that we can all use for this, which we are, mostly trying to lean towards, that would make life so much easier.
Yeah, bringing like a universal system into it, that would, on paper it's great, but then you just have all this. It it sucks because that goes back to healthcare being a business, right? And these companies that have this monopoly on certain parts of healthcare, they're gonna lose money because we move to a universal charting system, right? Or some monitor that everyone has, that syncs up your vitals and has patient history on it. And because I mean for me today, like, we got new monitors, and that, when you discharge a patient, their information gets saved for 7 days in said monitor and in that whole entire system. So if that patient somehow bounces back to us, we pull it back up, readmit them, and you can check out their stuff.
And that's why this episode is going to be about our technological advances
I like how we went
in
from
healthcare.
bashing EMTs to fucking technological
Yeah,
advances.
we did get a little sidetracked there, just like
I mean,
Listen, I'm
oh,
not
own path,
bashing
but
EMTs. It's just sometimes they make either bad decisions or the wrong decision, and you learn from it, or I
yeah,
hope you learn from it. I've been there. I've been the new guy on the truck.
no, see, I give people the benefit of the doubt, like, learning from it, or I'll even, like, sometimes be like, "Oh, like, maybe, like, this person should have had this," like, in a kind way, or, like, educate about it, but in a respectful way. But there's just people who, just as human beings, do not have common sense,
exactly. And I
who do
mean,
this job in a I don't know.
yeah, you gotta have your common sense. You gotta just go back to the basics of your OPQRSTs. If the nursing facility doesn't know why their patient is sick, or their patient fell 5 days ago and now they don't feel good, just do a basic head to toe assessment,
Yeah,
do a
do your
vital check.
sample history,
Yeah,
do your assessment, like fall back on what you learned.
exactly. And if you cannot recall what you learned and if you just don't care, please leave the field, because we do not need you here. Because you are just a detriment to the patient itself, to themselves, and you just cannot help us when we're in the interim of the acute care facility. All right, because we don't know what we're dealing with, and we gotta find it out. We gotta do our code sepsis. We gotta draw the labs, and now we gotta like do this fucking treasure hunt of like what the hell's going on.
And that's the thing with the emergency department, is that we work on this such little information from the beginning. We essentially have to figure out what's going on and then figure out how to help that. So, those little details of them coming in, being able to give us some sort of information really helps us out. Whereas the floors, we kind of already know what we're admitting under. They know why they're being there. They know, like, what's been done for them. They know
Yeah,
the route of care.
That they have a lab work, they have IV access, they have medications, they have an admitting diagnosis, they have all of that stuff.
They have
And
an order for specific dietary needs.
Yeah, every
order for telemetry, check vitals every 8 hours or whatever it
Where's the
is.
admitting orders?
You know what I'm excited for? I mean, we just talked about vitals and all that fun stuff. I'm excited for because again, I mentioned that we got new monitors and
So tell us about those.
they're
Yeah.
the brand new Philips monitors. I don't know if I think they have them on the telemetry floor in your hospital, Dan. They're really nice, actually. they they will sync up and input vitals into the chart. You can do like different types of sequences. So let's say we do a conscious sedation and we need to do Q vitals every 5 minutes, Q4 minutes, and then you can set it up to do after that Q4 minutes, you can do the next sequence to Q15 and then Q hour afterwards. And it's just all one little thing. And then you hit start and it'll do all that. And it'll be
So, like
continuous
room
afterwards.
monitors?
Was that?
Like room monitors?
Yeah, room
Yeah,
monitors. So
the
like
ones on the walls.
on
yeah.
the walls, yes. So you can do all this crazy stuff. We have like for me it's from going from the hospital in New Jersey to here, it felt like I was back in the Stone Age because we can't update automatically our vitals. Like they don't go straight into the chart. I gotta take them and then I gotta chart them. This one eliminates that from my job, kind of. So, which is
You
really
couldn't.
nice. There's so much you can choose different types of rhythms. So, let's say this patient has a paced rhythm. You can go into the monitor, hit the, this specific option, and be like, oh, this patient has a pacemaker, and it'll relearn the rhythm. And sometimes if there's like how some patients will have like frequent PVCs and it'll say it's VTAC, you can have it relearn the rhythm, and then those PVCs will be actually like a normal, patient rhythm, and then it won't, alarm as VTAC. But there's also like, fail safes where the patient does go into VTAC and it'll be like, hey, this patient's in the VTAC, and it has like this alarm and it's like all centralized into like a big brain. Like where the monitor tech will like watch it and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
See, that
So
does
Kevin,
that does sound nice because like you had back when you were with us, we could input the information like the vitals and stuff directly from the monitors to
but
the
you had to
computer.
do it for every single different time on the old
Yeah,
charting system. Like you
and
had to
we
open up 7 o'clock, put the vitals in. 7:15, put the vitals in. 7:30, put the vitals in. With the new system, you could go in and hit, validate vitals and pull Q15 vitals for the last 2 hours
Yeah,
and just hit
exactly.
save.
You also had
Yeah,
to make sure it was that specific person logged into the monitor. I mean, we're better now.
yeah.
We used SCM, now we switched to Epic,
Uh,
but there's still so
Good
many
old
issues.
Epic.
But that sounds nice that you're able to pull the rhythm
You
because
can
I
pull
wish
the
we could
rhythm
do
and you
that.
can pull past rhythms in the
And
from the
save it to
monitor
the
itself.
chart.
Yeah, and
Because
Yeah.
save it in the
we
chart.
have the
So
we have the telly thing, but like Jack walked by the other day, he goes, "Oh, like room 21, they were in like VTAC for a sec." And let me like
Yeah.
pull it up
I
here,
looked,
but
it was
you
it was a
can't
legit
input
run
it.
of VTAC, and I'm like, oh fuck.
You can't input it to the system. You can like the only thing you can do is print out that like
Print out
specific
a
moment
6-second strip
and put it in their
and
chart.
put
yeah,
it in the
exactly.
physical chart.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what we can do too. It's like this whole entire like modicum of things where it's just so I feel like a 45-minute class was not enough to learn everything. We're gonna have to learn everything again by trial and error. But it's gonna be really good for our ICU holds, our DOU holds, and like printing out the strips because like the monitor tech can print out all the strips at the end of shift, and then all those everything, all those rhythms can be put into the chart and all that fun stuff because depending on the type of hold that we're holding in the ER, we need those strips to see if they do have a run of VTAC or if their rhythm changes or whatnot. And I mean, it's really cool to see this type of advance in healthcare. But to be honest, I'm pretty sure there are far more advanced monitors out there, and we just got like the next update because we really needed it. Because I'm pretty sure they have like crazy stuff that are
Yeah.
millions of dollars that we will never see unless we work at like a Mayo clinic.
Hospitals are very behind with monitoring software
Yeah,
Oh my
and
god, yeah.
charting and all this other stuff. They only upgrade when they absolutely have to because it's a cost saving measure, unfortunately.
yeah,
I know a paramedic in Pennsylvania who's working on an ambulance where they just got I don't even remember the brand name, but it's a whole brand new monitor system, like specifically designed for EMS. So it's not like the Zoll monitor, it's not the Philips monitor, it's its own thing and it
It's
has all these features that are
yeah.
built specifically towards EMS. Like it has, you could buy a ultrasound probe and plug it directly into the monitor.
Oh yes, a couple
You
of
could have
the
a
yeah.
glide scope and plug it directly into the monitor and have glide scope on your well, life pack style device.
Like I need to bring one of the fire guys that I worked with onto here because
Like, and it's
that's really
literally
cool.
brand new. It came out in like the last year or two, and they just bought, a new setup for all 10 ambulances they have, or however
Do
many
you
they
know
have.
how like that'll make that makes their lives easier and it makes our lives easier. I mean, it's just giving us like the best of the best in the field and in the hospital makes it really helps kind of maintain the patient's life.
But
Like you're able to
it
do
not only
so
helps,
much.
like you're saying, Kevin, it not only helps us like make our lives easier to do what we have to do, but it makes it more efficient to help the people, to help the patients.
Yeah, I
Like
was
it
trying.
always annoys me, like hearing something like that. It's like, well, why can't this be standardized? And it's always back to because it costs money.
It costs money, and it like, oh, you're good with the equipment you have now. Like like the
With
charting
our
system we have.
EKG
Yeah.
machines that we're like pulling wires off of other EKG machines to make one EKG machine work.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would have to like there's one that doesn't sync up, so I would have to freaking constantly like go to another machine and just do it. Like it's a lot, and unfortunately, like, it's again it goes down to it being a business. And I understand I'm not a CEO of a hospital. I don't do the fucking budget. I'm just there to do my job and make sure that none of our patients dies, and our nurses are helped out and all that stuff because that's just what I do. But I mean, if you give us the equipment to do it, I'm pretty sure more people will come to the hospital because we give
Kevin,
them such great care.
you want this equipment?
Yeah, I want this
You
equipment.
want the best? You want the best of the best?
The best of the best, please.
All I can do is a pizza party for you. Sorry.
Well, you know what? Those pizza parties, I don't give a shit if it's like 12 hours old,
It's
man.
No, sorry,
it's not
no
even good
pepperoni.
pizza.
it's
No
it's
pepperoni.
It's not even good pizza.
I don't care, man, because at night shift I eat a lot, and I don't care. I'll eat a pizza, especially when I don't bring lunch and we have a pizza party. I'm like, all right, cool. I don't have to do
Wait, so
anything.
Dude,
so
I end
I
up
got a
being so
question.
busy by the time I work my way around to the pizza, it's all fucking gone.
Yeah, because
Gone,
I eat it all.
wiped out. Yeah, I got actually a little side note before I ask my question. Somebody had brought like two pizzas the other day randomly, put them behind the nurse's station, cut them into like each slice, cut them into thirds, so it was like a little slivery essentially, so many people can just like grab a little piece.
It's
It
like a
was like
third grade
20
pizza
minutes.
party.
Yeah, pretty much. But like,
That's
it's
not
because it was
cool.
only two pizzas. It's like, hey, everyone can get a little bit.
A
Not even
little bit.
20 minutes, and I watched the entire box of pizza just disappear.
Oh
And,
my
like, somebody
god.
went to open the box, and the empty box is still there, and they opened it, and I was like, "Man, the look of disappointment on your face right now."
You know how sad that
I
is.
was I was actually for the first time, I got to be charged, for a shift.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Chargers,
I was able to watch
damn.
that.
And
Yeah,
I actually
it went bad fast because
I was
I showed up at 7 and he got so many squads in.
No, that
Dan,
was
I'm
the
sorry. I
entire
apologize.
time. I was very worried because I don't wanna do a bad job, and I wanna be able to be that charge who, like, makes sure not only is the like, everything running fine, I'm putting people in the right places, but that the nurses themselves aren't, like, struggling and I'm not really screwing them over. So I wanna be almost, like, a little bit more personal with the nurses and, like, make sure, like, "Hey, your assignment's good, I'm gonna put someone here. You can take another one even though you just got one 10 minutes ago? Yeah, let's do that."
that's
But
that's a good charge there.
w
I
I
don't know
w
how
Yeah.
long it's gonna last, but hey, that's a good charge. I mean,
I had no idea what I was doing, and I made it work, I feel like, and
our
people said I did
yeah,
decent, and I want,
Yeah.
honest
Well,
that was
feedback, so
pretty.
there was a point where Dan was like sitting at the desk and I was behind him and I'd like 2 minutes to not do anything immediately. Like I'd caught up and Dan's like, "Hey, look at this," and he pulls out the stack of papers of all the ambulances came in.
Oh my
He's like,
god.
since I took over and became charge at like whatever time, we've had 11 ambulances come in like
it
however
was
many
since
hours."
3, and it was probably, like, 8, 9 o'clock, I think, and it felt like so many more, but it was only, like, 11 squads that
Yeah,
came in, and
Well,
I
yeah,
was like, "Wait,
that's a
this
lot
is
in
it's
such a short
11
this is
time.
so
ambulances
much
he
more."
had to room in addition to people coming in from triage, and we only have 43 beds. He had to fit in all the people that were already there, all the people coming in from triage. He had to fit 11 more people somewhere in the emergency room.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
he did it. He did a good job of it. So
congratulations, bro. I'm happy for you. I mean, I just want to do a quick shout out to the charge nurses out there and the relief charges. Like you guys do so much, and we love you. And I'm talking about
It's
you guys.
it's not the easiest to manage.
It's
that.
not. No, I feel bad because we have 2 charge nurses at night, and you know we used to have 3. But now we have so many relief charges taking over. Like a really good friend of mine, Mike. He takes over charge a lot, and he does really good. And it's just like sometimes they don't let you know your charge until you clock in the shift. So
surprise, you're gonna get destroyed.
yeah, surprise. Also, it's really busy, and you have about 10 telemetry DOU holes and like 4 ICUs.
Well, Jack knows this, but that's except for you, Kevin. That's essentially, and the listeners, that's essentially how it happened for me. I had taken a charge nurse class 3 days prior, and they had me do charge for like 4 hours one day. But 3 days or 2 days prior, I did the charge nurse class, and I walk into the shift, and boss was like, "Hey, like I don't see you on the schedule. Are you supposed to be here?" And I was like, "Yeah." She double checks. Like, "Oh yeah, yeah. Like let me make sure let me move stuff around." I go to put my stuff in the break
Yeah,
room. She comes
we
into the
see
break
like where
room.
your assignment's gonna be. Oh, surprise! You're in
You're in
charge.
She comes into
charge.
the break room. She's like, "Hey, who's your favorite boss?" And I was like, "Oh, you are," because I was in my mind. I'm like, "Am I gonna get sent home early? Like, okay, maybe this is cool. I'm gonna be canceled." She goes, "I made you charge," and I was like, "Oh, fuck."
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's just charge
Like,
nurses. They're amazing. And
yeah,
relief charges, they really got to step up to the batter's plate, and they tend to knock it out depending on how long they've been doing it. But I mean, it sounds like you for your first night of charge, you did pretty fucking good, bro, and I'm happy for you. I'm proud of
I
you.
think I didn't drown, and it's because it's weird. It's like a different type of stress. You're not, you don't feel busy, but your mind is constantly working.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I also there's like a certain chaos to it that I really liked, which I feel like is bad. But
Well, you did a good job of it.
Yeah,
And
man. I mean, were you guys able to get beds, or were you holding the whole entire time?
I think we were getting
no,
beds that night.
it was flowing. The ICU took a little, like it was a little bit of waiting, but we had a few of them that ended up showing up.
Yeah.
That's good,
I mean,
though.
like Dan did a fantastic job as charge, and the nurses all worked fantastic. But we would be absolutely destroyed if we didn't have all the support staff and everything backing us up too.
Again,
You know,
No, yeah,
yeah.
we had
the
we had so we
housekeeping,
had
X-ray, all
essentially
that.
Oh, massive shout out to
we had
X-ray techs,
essentially
by the way.
another
Sorry.
X-ray techs, Alex.
Alex. No,
specifically Alex.
also the X-ray techs at my hospital, because they're I'm getting a little more into like seeing what the X-rays are about, and we had this patient who had like CHF exacerbation, and he was like, I was like looking at it, and I'm like, so where's like the the enlarged heart, and he was like trying to show me, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. And then we did like a ET2 placement. He was showing me that, and I was like, this is really cool. He's like, dude, if you ever want to learn, just follow me around and like ask me questions. I'm like, thanks, man. It's like it's good to learn from other departments. I was like,
Yeah,
yep.
Are you taking a
Alex
look at
did the exact
the
thing.
fib fractures and the metacarpals and stuff?
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that really quick. So when I brought up the foot fracture, and then I said metacarpals afterwards, it should have been an or in between foot fracture or metacarpals, because if you do know your splints, I mentioned a volar splint, meaning that I wish my video. We're not doing video today, but the 4th and 5th metacarpal, sometimes even the 3rd, depending on the size of the orthoglass in the hand, will be splinted with orthoglass, because there is a fracture within the 4th and 5th or 3rd metacarpal. When you do fracture the 5th metacarpal and 4th, sometimes you do tend to. It's called a boxer's break, and we've dealt with boxer's breaks before. I personally have a boxer's break in my right hand.
How does?
If you punch something and you break without any support, you break
The
your fifth.
compression of the unsupported fist hitting and pushing back into your arm will break that specific area.
Yeah, exactly. And hence we call it a boxer's break, because that's normally what happens when you punch something unsupported.
Newton was kind of onto something about that equal and opposite reaction. So
if you punch something and you're dumb, you break something and you still feel dumb. Kevin.
But this was a very long segue to my question of those tough books for you guys in the field. Kevin, do you use those?
No, I do not. Oh,
Jack, do you use those?
I'm
The tough
familiar with
books,
them, but
like
I
as
don't
I
use.
EMS?
have never used. I've seen them all the time with the EMS we have. I have not used them. We had iPads in my rescue squad.
Wow,
Really?
wow, must be
I did not
fucking
expect that.
nice, Mister
Here's the
Rich
thing,
Boy
though.
EMS Squad.
Here's the thing. We never used the iPads for charting. It was strictly for I am responding. So like going to calls and seeing who was going to show up for calls.
It
That
pops
was
up.
it.
It's like I am responding. Press the green button.
Like that's it. And not to rag on my old squad
Bravo
too much,
36
but
gonna be responding code 3
like
to that nursing facility.
they got the iPads without the cell phone package, so we had to get the
Wi-Fi
The
transmitter?
Wi-Fi,
cards
the
to
hotspot.
use them properly. Yeah, the hotspots.
Oh god.
And it was just a
There's
disaster.
some technology, but it doesn't fully work to its capabilities, so just, wing it.
Yeah, they bought one to try it, realized their mistake, and then bought 4 with the wireless or the 3G or 4G, whatever,
Yeah.
and then used that, and then put them in the wrong mounts. We'd be driving down the road with the iPad bouncing around in the fucking mount.
Yeah, no, I know a couple of services that use the iPad. So I mean, quick shout out to Matt from Kansas City and James in Brownville, now in Austin FD. They use iPads for their charting, I think, and their all like everything. So everything is inputted in the iPad. I think the Tough Book is kind of like making its way out. I know the BLS service out here in California, they still use Tough Books because I see them charting on it, and it freezes and it breaks and it doesn't work half the time. But
That's why I wanted to ask, because they're supposed to be great, but I feel like every time I have to sign one, there's so many issues.
They're great when they're new. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. If you get iPads and you do it properly, it works fantastically.
yeah,
But you have to make whatever you have work for you. Like the new monitors, they work fantastically, and I'm glad they're going good for you, but they probably built in a system to make it work properly.
yeah, exactly. And I can't wait to see when they break, because I know we're the ER,
What-
and I love us to death, but we're gonna break something sooner
When
or
they
later.
break, it will break so bad.
Yeah. like my ER uses, okay, so we use a 3-lead ECG system for a patient. So I know the old
Just for
hospital I work,
monitoring, yeah.
yeah, the old hospital you guys work at now, you guys use a 5-lead, to smoke over fire, snow over grass.
It doesn't work great, and our transport monitors are 3-lead, but the 5-lead is just, it leads to way too many false VFib, VTAC, whatever things, and the respiration
I
thing it's
feel like
supposed to
that's
do doesn't work
more
properly.
a monitor
Just
pickup too,
Oh,
but
so
yeah.
the cool thing about these Philips monitors that we got. So let's say if a patient is a chest breather, they're like, they breathe with their chest more than their belly. You can set it to a
Does it take
specific
into consideration
lead.
artifact?
Huh?
I
Was
thought
that?
you were gonna say it takes into consideration like the artifact. of
It
the
doesn't.
patient.
No. So this one. So it could cause
you
artifact,
can set
right?
the respiration.
Yeah, you can set the respiration area. So if they're a belly breather, you can switch it to a different lead, which takes in consideration what the patient's respiration is, and it'll do that. So let's say if they're more of a belly breather, or if they're a COPD exacerbation, they're using the accessory muscle use. You can switch it, and then
you
you
could
have
actually
an
have an accurate respiration count.
rate. So we don't
That's
have to
nice.
lie. Just say 16. 16
I mean,
respiration.
They're not 16 when they're COPD exacerbation,
Oh,
but it's
no,
like,
they're
is it 32?
So it's like
Is it
50.
40?
They're
Like,
super
sometimes you don't have time to sit there for a full minute and count respirations, and
No.
they're not on BiPAP yet, so you can't just look at the BiPAP screen and go like, oh yeah, it's 36.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why we have these technological advances, so we don't have to sit there for a fucking minute and be like, 1.
So who's
Two.
done?
Granted, if
Who's
everything breaks, you still have to have those skills to fall back
Oh,
on,
exactly.
but it is nice to have the technology to save the time and chart accurately.
Yeah.
Always, but who's done paper charting?
We do it once a month when our downtime hits us.
I really have not done paper charting for
Since nursing school?
Did you do it in nursing school? Is my
I
question.
did not do paper charting in nursing school.
Oh,
We
wow.
had what was it?
Really?
OcuCare or something? Yeah.
What nursing school
So
did you go to? Because I want to go to that one.
So I did paper chart in my clinicals.
I'm sorry.
We were allowed access to the computers, but for certain things. For some other stuff, we had to do paper charting. So the place I did my clinicals at, one of them at least, had more information in the charts, but physical information, papers. So we actually had to write up like nursing notes and put them in there. And this is probably going to sound sadistic, but I loved that. I loved a tangible physical object to be able to put something in there, to go look back, flip through the pages real quick, find what I need, as opposed to have to go through the computer system. Other stuff we did the computer system, and then of course now with like the actual job, it's straight computer system and like
Yeah.
an EKG and a chart, but that's it.
And there are some things where, like, yes, I absolutely want to have something to write on and to like keep track like that. Like before we got Epic with the narrators and all that, which I love the narrators personally. If you have
They're cute.
someone
They are good.
separate to work it, if you're not the primary nurse, you're just there to chart. It's fantastic. But if you're running a code and you have 15 people in the room and no one's charting and like you're scribing and you just hand them a pen and a piece of paper, that is like the best. They can write down the times, they can write down like what rhythm it is, what meds are given, and it's so much faster than doing electronic charting.
My scrap of napkin can be more accurate than an entire computer system.
Oh,
Yes.
facts. My glove. My
D-
glove
I-
with the permanent marker on it.
I write
Oh,
on my
the
glove
glove's
all the time
decent.
taking vitals.
The
Oh, yeah.
glove's decent, but you
Yeah.
end up gets dirty. You have to be careful. I saw this thing once, and I sent it to Jack Joe, one of our coworkers, and it was the coolest thing. And I wanted it, and we joked that our boss should like invest in getting them for the ER. And it was a glove, medical glove that
With
had.
the stuff on the back, yeah, I've seen
Yes, you
those.
saw that? It had like
Oh, I
lines that said
saw
heart rate,
that.
It has
BP, and all that.
each
So you can
with
write
a
down your
line,
vitals.
BP with a line, yeah.
I want those.
Those are cool in practice, but I feel like just because they give us
Honestly,
like notepads at work, so we just write our shit
I
down
do that
there.
with my glove anyway. Like
Yeah.
I write it in that format, heart rate. I don't write HR, but I'm like, oh yeah, 68, 110 over 70, like whatever. I write on the glove. But if you were gonna do any sort of like long-term charting aside from one set of vitals, you need either a piece of paper. I've heard of like old school medics taking like 2 or 3 inch tape and just ripping off a huge chunk and taping their leg with the tape and writing on that.
That's
That's
actually
a good
pretty
idea.
cool.
I have not seen that.
I mean, we don't do it
I've heard of that
here in
with like
ER.
old school flight medics and old school just regular ground medics. They'll take a big piece of tape and tape their leg with like 3 inch tape and write on the tape.
That's pretty
I'm gonna
good for
start
a
carrying
like an
fabric
acute care
tape
thing.
now.
I've seen
Fabric tape and doing that.
like new is old, and like every 20 years you'll do the same thing over again. I know. Have you guys seen the show Night Watch? Like especially the early seasons,
Like
New
the
Orleans
New
EMS.
Orleans, those guys are
Yeah.
dope.
In New Orleans, at least in their ambulance from the 2010s, they have literally just big space of whiteboard with markers, dry erase markers, and they just write on the inside of the ambulance. Like if they're working a code and they do like, oh, shock at 300, shock at 360, gave an epi at this time. They just write all over the inside of the ambulance. And when
Yeah.
they pull up to the hospital, like, okay, copy that all down real quick, get the patient inside. Here's what we did.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, anything you can write on, even your fucking skin, is is basically a charting right there. Like we had an intubation. That I think my last shift. I think it was like, what was it, Monday? And I had an orientee or a fairly new person. He was off orientation. He was following me. He was like, so I want to know what your role is here. Because I don't know. He was asking me that. I was like, well, this is what I do. I'll set up glide scope. I'll tell doc we're ready. We call respiratory, and then we get ready for the intubation. At the same time, I'll get ready flushes and all that stuff. So I hand him to the nurse that's flushing the etominate, the sucks, the rock, the vecaronium. If
Did
you
I
have
teach
it.
you that? Did I teach you that?
But no, that's something I've always been doing. So, but what
No,
I
the
do as
flush.
well, the flush is well. I mean, there's
'Cause as a tech, I always carried flushes, and it wasn't because I would use them, it's because if a nurse needed, I was ready to hand them a
Yeah, no,
flush,
you've
try to pass that
that
on to
came
people.
came from you. You taught me that. Yes. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you for
Mm,
teaching me that. But what I do as well is, especially in the DOU, the telemetry floors or the med surg floors, when we intubate a patient, sometimes someone is not recording. So, there's that off chance they're not recording. So what I do is when they are starting the meds and they're like, I'm pushing a etomidate, I just chart it on my hand. I'm like, all right, we're pushing a etomidate at this, this is how much they requested.
20
And then,
milligrams at
yeah,
this
at
time.
this time. And then we're pushing sucks. 20 is sucks at this time.
It'd
Intubation.
be like 100 a sucks.
Yeah, okay, something
But
like
yeah,
that. Sorry, I'm medication to EMT. I don't know anything. No, I'm just kidding.
date
But we
before
go
we suck.
into, and then when they finish intubation, it'll be like, okay, two placements is going to be 7.5, 23 at the lip. Write that down. And then they're like, okay, is anyone charting? I'm like, well, I have it in my hand. So here it is.
yeah, you are the person I appreciate in the room because, like,
Mhm.
And that just goes back to me being, see, the thing is, like, I trying to be a nurse. That's what I'm trying to get towards. And that's what everyone loves about that. I'm not trying to hype myself up, but I try to help out everyone as much as possible because it's like, it's hectic, especially on those floors when we had to intubate or we're doing a code and no one's recording or the nurse runs out or something like that. And it just needs to be recorded because you're charting from EMT to tech to all the way up to doctor to being a physician. That your charting is a legal obligation
it's
to
a
make
legal
sure
document, and if you do
document.
it
Yeah.
wrong, you are
You
fucked.
will be deposed and you could lose your license. And we do not need that.
Because they will put
Yeah.
you on the stand and watch you bury yourself in front of the jury.
It's like, did you
So the
chart this at this time? So on and so on. It's like, yes, I did.
so the vibes I feel like I'm getting from you guys is that we appreciate the advances in technology that make our life a little bit simpler, but for the majority, we kind of appreciate the old school, simpler aspect.
Yeah. I mean,
The
technology has its
technology,
time and place, but just going back into the grunt work of just doing shit the old fashioned way really makes the basis of what we do, especially in the ER. It helps us out because people are going to be going back and forth between everything. And
yeah.
people normally go back to that old school way.
The
'Cause, like
technology helps when it works.
Oh,
And when it doesn't
yes.
work, you have to have the skills to fall back on. Like, you have to be able to take a manual blood pressure. You have to be able to manually count respirations. Like, you have to know your lung sounds and be able to tell the doctor, hey, I hear this. Do you concur?
Yeah,
Jack,
exactly.
that's a great segue without you even realizing. So, tomorrow night from Saturday to Sunday, we have downtime. I don't know if you knew this.
I did know that. We're
Okay.
so doomed for, like,
You guys have
it's literally
No, no,
downtime
no.
starting in
for
the
No,
more
middle
no,
of
than
no.
my
one
shift
day?
and going through the end of my shift. It's gonna be
Here's
fantastic.
here's the thing. So, we used to be SCM, right?
Yeah.
I when I started as a nurse, I don't remember what we had before that, honestly. But
Cerner, I think.
yes, yeah, yeah, Cerner. So we started with that. I had to learn that computer system. A week into working, they switched to SCM. We didn't have any extensive classes or anything. I just had to pick
There
up
was
on
there
it
was no
as we
back
go.
end support, like, you didn't have
No,
people walking through, "Are you okay? Do you know how to do this?"
it was like one day to the next. Here's your new computer system. If you get it,
Go.
good. If not, fuck off. So when we switched to Epic, we had days of classes we had to do.
I wish the
With
classes were more in depth for us, at least as ER nurses,
yes,
because
because I brought up
they were
I brought up questions and they literally told me one guy, shout out, he's probably never gonna listen to this, but Felipe, oh my god, he was fucking great. He knew everything. If he
Shout out
didn't
to
know it, he
Felipe.
would find out. So I would bring up questions specific for the ER to Epic, and he would be like, "I think you fucking broke our system. We have no idea." Like, and it happened like 2 or 3
"Let me
times.
find out for you," and he would get back to you before the end of the thing at that day.
Yeah.
They changed our format because of some of the questions I asked because they didn't have a spot for it. But with
Yeah.
SCM, if we went for downtime, it was as soon as it started, you're fucked. Everything's paper charting, you're back to that, which I didn't hate, but that's the basis of it.
Yeah.
With Epic, if your patient is in the system, if they're registered, you can continue caring for your patient as if there's no downtime. If your
And
patient is
it'll just
on the
upload at the end of it.
Wow.
yeah, because it's like when you disconnect from Wi-Fi, I guess it would be the best, representation of this.
It's like a Word document or like Google Docs, I should
Yeah.
probably say. Like you can keep typing on the Google Docs, and then when the internet comes back, it uploads as
Mhm.
like the most recent save.
So you guys don't
Yeah.
technically have a downtime. You don't need to
Well,
bust
no,
out the
We
paper
do.
charting.
There is
We
still
do.
a downtime. If your patient comes in after the downtime has started,
Yeah, they're
it's
not.
100% paper
It's
charting.
paper charting.
paper.
But if your patient, especially your ICU holds and all that, if they're already admitted into the system, you can continue charting. And
You
like,
can chart.
Essentially,
yeah,
in a
Don't know
analogy to an
how meds
offline
work.
system.
I'm not sure how the meds work. I'm not sure how the orders or labs work. I'm not sure if that stuff will come back or not. That's my
The
thing.
the meds don't really cross over if there's new meds, but if there's in the system already, you can chart them, you can mark the time given, and when it comes back online, it'll upload that and
Yeah,
continue
that's
from there. But if it wasn't there before then it's like paper stuff.
Rock. Oh,
but
are you streaming?
I'm gonna keep that in.
someone just interrupted our podcast, but never mind that.
You know what? I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Mr. Kenny. He's an Army Black Hawk pilot. He doesn't care about me saying this. He's a badass motherfucker. He wanted this
He is.
shout out, and we love you, Kenny. That was fucking hilarious.
Say the
Congrats on everything.
that's
I
while
was
we're
getting ready
recording.
to kick him too. I was like, oh, so fast. But no, Epic sounds really good, and that's really cool that you
It
guys
has
switched to
its
that
own.
because we here at my hospital in California, we're still using Meditech, which is I'm gonna bring someone on sooner or later that talks about Meditech, especially one of the ER nurses, and he's gonna say everything about it. But talking about Epic, right? We're gonna get into a little fun discussion here.
Are we?
The Vanderbilt situation, right? They switched to Epic, and their whatever their Pyxis, their Omnicell, whatever they were using, was not
Pyxis,
syncing
I
up.
believe, but
yeah,
yeah.
the Pyxis was not syncing up with their database or whatnot. So nurses the whole entire day were overriding to get the medication. And this the nurse that unfortunately pulled the Vecuronium also had to override. But this was a big campfire discussion. I brought this up
This is a
at work.
bonfire. This is a house fire.
There's a house fire discussion. This was a big discussion at work,
Forest
right? I
fire
brought it up at
discussion.
work, and we had a little bit of a huddle topic about, not a huddle topic, but we all huddled around in a nursing station, talked about it. The doctor had opinions. Everyone had opinions.
We had a huddle about this too.
Yeah. So
I'm
I
sure
mean,
every hospital
every
everywhere
hospital,
in the United
yeah.
States had a huddle about
and
this.
this is coming from me. Like, everyone just double check everything before we get into this conversation. Double check every
The
single
triple
order
check
and
To
what
be
is what.
completely honest, Kevin, that goes back like, yes, it shouldn't have happened. She should not have given the medication. She also should not have been charged for homicide.
Yes.
Like,
I
but
want to bring up the fact that, okay, she got charged for gross negligent homicide. What do you think that's gonna? How is that gonna affect us? How is that gonna affect healthcare workers in reporting mistakes that it happens?
I am
Medication
going
error
to
happens.
continue. I'm going to continue the way I have been, but I have heard from numerous nurses I work directly with in the emergency room. Yeah, I'm not going to give meds until it's in the computer, verified by pharmacy, and I can pull it without an override. I've heard that straight from the mouths of other people I work with in the emergency room. Like, yeah, I won't pull rocuronium. I won't pull ketamine. I won't pull these medications that could be potentially life-saving. We would use in an RSI or in an emergent setting. Yeah, I'm not doing it until the doctor puts the order in and pharmacy comes through and says, yes, this is okay.
See, the great thing about my hospital, we have all our RSI medication, our Etomidate, our Sux, our rocuronium in a case,
kit.
a yellow case that
Yeah.
says paralytics, intubation medication. This is what you're using it for. So
Well,
Ready to go
Here's
RSI
the
kit.
thing
Yeah.
about that. Rocuronium, vecuronium, succinylcholine, all of the paralytic medications, every single one has in the Pyxis, or on, I don't know about Omnicell, I've never worked with it, but in the Pyxis, even if you pull it on an override, it will pop up a warning. This is a paralytic. Will your patient be ventilated? Or will your patient be ventilated? You have to hit yes or no.
I mean, and
When
that,
you go
yeah,
and pull it out of the fridge and you like, yes, we have it in tubs, even if it's not in a little thing like warning paralytic, and you open the thing and pull it out, even if it's just in like a normal tray, you take the vial out, it says on the fucking side of the vial and on the top of the vial, paralytic agent. If you're not sure, you have to go back to your 5 rights. And I do that myself with medications that aren't like that. Like, oh, you have some sort of weird, like, rheumatoid arthritis medication I've never heard of. I'm going to look it up to make sure I know what I'm working with. Like, even if I'm not giving it, feel like, oh, yeah, I take this, I take aspirin, and I take Plavix, and I take whatever high blood pressure medicine, and this medication. I'm like, okay, let me look that up to see what it is.
yeah,
Like,
I
exactly.
that's
can't
just good
I
practice.
can't say because I haven't really read up on this case much, so anything I'll say is with a massive salty grain of salt. But even when I have to override stuff and you can't scan it or there's issues with that, I I check it so many different times. I'll
Yeah.
have the computer system right next to me looking at it. I'll have other people double check certain things.
You know what you're pulling
Yeah,
essentially is
exactly.
what you're getting
Yeah,
to. Like, when I go and I override a medication, I'm like, I know what it is, I know how it works, and I know why I am pulling it. Like
exactly right.
Tylenol.
Yeah.
Oh, this patient has a fever. They ordered 650 of Tylenol. Okay. They're getting Tylenol for a fever. It's this patient in this room. Like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?
Okay. Okay, Marvel fan over here. No, I mean it goes back to, so for instance, like, that same time we had that conversation, we had a patient come in for you don't see me right now, but I'm doing air quotes, abdominal pain, but they were a CWA patient, right? They're out in alcohol withdrawal, they checked in the
Alcohol
ER,
withdrawal. Yep.
and then they started seizing. And then the nurse had to override for lorazepam, which is Ativan, to help stop the seizure, calm them down, all that shit. And it goes back to knowing the generic name of the drug, right? So when that nurse, I forgot her name, Redonda something, at Vanderbilt, overrided and tried to pull Versed, which is generic name midazolam, right? My dad, who's a CRNA, he
Yeah.
pushes
Versed
that
is
on a
a, yeah,
daily
brand name.
basis for to in the cath lab to sedate the patient. Versed and fentanyl. So midazolam and fentanyl. Right, so midazolam it's midazolam, not Versed, even though all that. She pulled up the vecuronium, and then she had to reconstitute the powder. That means putting saline in it or whatever, mixing it up to be able to push it. Right? Shouldn't that have been a red flag that you're reconstituting a medication? Besides all the paralytic shit popping up, especially on the Omnicell or the Pyxis, you know, like I have to ask from a nursing standpoint, if you're pulling medication and it says, is your patient going to be ventilated, and you ignore that, knowing damn well that your patient is not going to be ventilated, like was that just like alarm fatigue? Was that you were so stressed out that you did not know what was going on, or you also she I mean she had a preceptee, she was the float nurse, which is covering all the breaks, helping other nurses out. And then she had to get this patient down to CT for a scan or a PET scan or what's going on. And unfortunately, all this happens. I mean, like, what's your standpoint on that? Like,
To be honest, I can't speak towards her mindset, but I have questioned things as simple as Tylenol before. Like, we've
yeah,
had pediatric patients come in. We're not a pediatric hospital at the hospital me and Dan work at, but yeah, we're an emergency room. We see kids. We get kids. We get medication orders in kilograms for kids, which we're not used to seeing. So when I go into the Pyxis and they order something as simple as Tylenol, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the kids, 12 or 13 or 14, and they're on the bigger side, and they order weight-based Tylenol, even though they could probably take just a normal 650 dose pills.
yeah,
I go in the Pyxis and patient's name, yep, correct room, number, name, all that. Go into the Pyxis. The order is in there. It's been verified by pharmacy. I click on it, and it's like the cell or the drawer pops out. The cell opens, and it's like pull 5 vials. I'm like,
5
that
vials.
really, yeah. It's like it's 5 of those little cups of like
Yeah, yeah.
160 mLs each, and I'm like, that really doesn't seem right. And I like triple
Like
check myself. I have someone else verify it. Like,
And often
they're
you're not giving those
Tylenol,
5 full vials, you're giving 4 and,
but
like,
you're
a
giving
third or
4 and
eighth
a
of
bit.
one.
yeah.
This technology is put into place. These systems that we keep advancing in are put into
They're to
place so
keep
that we
our
can
patients safe and to keep us safe.
Exactly.
so yeah, they are systematically the checks of making sure everything is safe, but computer systems fail. The Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it's just things don't cross over, there's downtime. So it is ultimately up to the nurse to have to figure out, let me, all right, this isn't working. Let me be the computer system for a moment and, just double check this isn't right. Maybe this has to be calculated. You just double check, triple check the 5 rights.
Yeah.
And if
A
all
lot.
else fails, check with the person who ordered it.
Which is
90% of
yeah.
the time, it's the emergency room doctor. They're sitting right next to you. Like, "Hey,
Exactly.
did you order this? What was
And
the dose? Do you want me to give this?"
Mhm.
from my experience, the people I can at least say for the people I work with in the ER, those physicians and those PAs and NPs, if
They're
you go to them,
fantastic.
we have a relationship where you can go to them, you can be like, "Hey, I'm questioning this medication order. Maybe I don't understand it. Maybe you made a mistake. Can we just like talk about this for a sec?" And maybe they'll clarify and be like, "Oh yeah, this is the reason. Like we can do this, we can't do this. Hey, you're right. Like we shouldn't be giving this. Let me switch it to this." It's that open communication
Yeah.
and just
Not only will they say, "Yes, that's correct," they'll explain why. Like, "Yeah, the
yes.
kid, his fever was high or whatever. Like, yeah, I want you to give this medication at this dose. That's proper." And I'm like, "Okay." Or
And those
if
are
I
the good
bring it up and
ones.
they're like, "Oh, yeah, I made a mistake. Let me change it from, like, Tylenol to something else."
Yeah, exactly.
And those are the
Like,
good ones
"Okay."
because you don't always have those types of, physicians, PAs, and all that who will do that.
Yeah,
Some will be like, "Why are you questioning my orders?" So
exactly.
it's, of course, up to the nurse who is
I
going
mean,
to be administering this medication.
yeah. And that's why the it's up to the nurse, like you said, and that's why especially if you're a nurse, you're your patient's advocate. You're supposed to be like like you said that like you're questioning why you're giving this medication, and sometimes it's not mostly the physicians in the ER or the PAs or MPs, but it's the new grad residents, it's the PGYs, PGY2s that are putting these orders in. They're sleep deprived, they're doing an overnight 24-hour 36-hour call day, and they're there and they're putting in medication, and there's a medication error, and you have to call them like, hey, why am I giving this patient this instead of this, or something like that. And it goes back to the mindset of like your 5 rights. Why is this patient getting this? Why am I administering this? All that fun shit.
And that's why we do keep advancing in these computer systems because these computer systems are supposed to be the failsafe that can help catch these med errors, these med mistakes, these kinds of things. But ultimately, it is the physical person who ends up putting, the medication into a human being and having to
Exactly.
make sure that it's the correct
I
thing.
The computers feel like they get in the way sometimes, especially when you're in an emergency, but, like, they are out there to help not only you from preventing a mistake from happening, they're there to keep you from harming your patients.
Exactly. And I mean, again, it goes back to being that nurse, being that patient's advocate. I know we're diving into that like really deep, but you guys, especially you guys got to check these medications. You got to make sure why they're getting these medications. All that you like you said that you question sometimes like why is this patient getting this medication? You're the one who's gonna either you're that thin line where it's gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna if you're on autopilot and you just give that medication and you don't it happens and something horrible happens, that's your license, that's the
Yeah,
physician's
that's on
license.
you, that's not on the doctor, that's
It's
not on
not
the
it's
pharmacist,
not on
that's
the
not on the
computer system. The
basis.
computer
Yeah,
system's not gonna get sued. It's
yeah,
you.
that's on you. You're the one that gave it, unless if you knew it was really messed up and you made the doctor give it, like, that's you.
Exactly.
and that and that's such a hard thing of how the system of what just healthcare has become, because like we've talked about how we're overworked, we're getting stressed, especially with COVID and all this stuff, and that's kind of calmed down a little bit. But the burnout is real, the stress is real. You have a shift where you're getting, 6, 7 patients. They could be I've had 7 patients and they're all super nice to me. They're great. Everything goes smooth. Or you can have those patients where it's
Yeah,
like
you could have an
just
assignment of 3
absolute
patients that all 3 of them wanna give you problems, and it makes your
yes.
night hell.
Oh,
And
you
you
have that.
just you
Yeah.
get stressed, you don't think straight. The computers are there to help you, but, if you're not thinking straight, you're still the one doing these things, and it can be hard.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's just so much that goes into it, and then so much respect goes out to the nurses out there. Like much love. You guys are the MVPs of the hospital. You're your patient advocates. I know I'm just an EMT, but I'm working my way up to the nursing, all that fun stuff. But
Don't be a nurse.
I
I'm gonna
have
tell
to.
you right now,
I have to.
Let me tell you,
every single person I tell, I'm like, I know they're trying to do the best, and they wanna do good by people, and they wanna get a decent job, and I understand that, but, like, now's not the time to get into nursing. The
it's it's
profession
it's
the
crazy.
profession's getting dumped on from all directions. Like, we're the bad guys because we're recommending vaccines. We're the bad guys because administration doesn't like us because we do our jobs. Like,
Yeah. I
we're
mean,
just getting attacked from all directions,
yeah.
and it's not the time to get into nursing.
Well, that's why I put in my paramedic application into a
well,
local
let me
college
tell
out
you,
here. So we'll see
the
when.
advice I got when I was starting nursing school is from a nurse at that time. The advice I got was, "Don't do it. Don't be a nurse." And there was, like, a bit of seriousness, a bit of
Yeah,
joking,
Yeah.
and
and,
how long was that person a nurse for?
years. They were a
Yeah,
nurse for quite a while already, and, I realized there was a bit of joking, but I also realized there was a bit of seriousness, and I was like, "I'm still gonna do it."
yeah, I don't know how long that person's been a nurse. I'm assuming more than 10 years. I've been a nurse for 2.5 years, and I'm saying the same thing, half serious, half joking.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
Because you I mean, it
it's.
is it is a
it's the
calling.
worst job you will ever love, honestly.
Yes. No, that
I
is the
say the same
perfect way
thing
to
Yeah.
about
do it. I was
It's a
just gonna
firing
love
say
hate
it.
EMS.
relationship.
I love it and I hate it.
Yeah. I mean,
Fire, EMS, nursing, like all that stuff. Probably military too. I've never served, but I'm assuming. Like, it
The
is the worst
job's
job you will ever love.
the job's about helping people.
you are like compared to some like working retail or food, like yeah, that's a service job, like food service, whatever. But we are of service to people. But there's just so much that we deal with. Like we are dealing with people who are on either on the brink of death, they're really sick, or they're just there for their dilaudid fix, whatever it is, right? Anything that you do from ER tech, EMT to physician, right? If something is miscalculated, something's wrong, that could be your license. There was a meme, right, that I saw a long time ago. It's like um the CNA checked his blood sugar and the patient's blood sugar was like 56. It was what the CNA said initially, and then the CNA came back. Oh, I was out jokingly. She's like, "Oh, the blood pressure, the blood sugar was actually 156," and like laughs about it. But then you like that misinformation, right?
Yeah, you can't joke about
You
something like
can't
that.
you
That's
can't
someone's life.
you got to, especially if they're a diabetic patient. Their sugar's low, we're gonna end up giving them D50 or something to put that sugar up. But if it goes too up and too high, then we have all those repercussions we gotta deal with. It's such a you gotta be on your fucking game when you're in healthcare. Especially in acute care setting, especially in the ER when we are trying to find out what is going on with the patient.
That and that's where those technologies come in, because you do that, the glucometers are, marked to the system. It'll bring up a red flag saying, "Hey, blood sugar is 56. You sure you wanna, like, just leave it like that? Maybe let the doc know this, that."
Do you wanna
But
save this blood sugar? Did you notify a provider? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
like, ultimately, the technology's there to help
Yeah.
us, but, you know, it's you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my chart. So my charting now, the Meditech system. When I used to chart on SCM, if I had a patient that I charted their temp was like 102.7, they were tacky and they were hypotensive, it'll pop up a sepsis alert.
An
Mhm.
automated alert that's like, "Hey, these vitals indicate this patient is at risk
For
for
sepsis or
X.
something. For
But
this
that
blah
is
blah blah.
that is the perfect
I moved too
Nice.
much.
video stuff is falling right now. But that's also the perfect like
It happened
there
again.
it goes again. That's the perfect example because it'll pop up sepsis. But with our system, I've had so many patients who they come in for something like an anxiety attack and it tells me, "Hey, there's a sepsis, alert because the patient's tacky, they're breathing fast, and some other things." And it's like,
Oh yeah,
no, they're not
you only
sepsis.
need 2 criteria. If you get the right
They're
patient,
scared.
you can have a patient come in with AFib RVR, so they're tachycardic automatically, and if the rapid ventricular response is actually affecting them, they could have hypotension.
Yeah,
So minus a fever, minus positive cultures, minus all that stuff, they're tachycardic, hypotensive, automatic sepsis alert, even though there's not a single real sign of infection. There's no
exactly.
wound sores, there's no respiratory component, none of that. Like
Yeah,
they are here strictly for their heart. It's a sepsis alert. And you
exactly.
have to be competent enough as a provider to recognize that. Like, yes, I know you're trying to tell me this patient's at risk for sepsis, but their heart is garbage and we need cardizem or another medication to slow their heart down and fix that problem. You fix that, the sepsis alert goes away. You get their heart rate under control, their blood pressure comes back up, you're golden.
Exactly. I mean, so I had this patient come in. So when I work triage, it's like my favorite part of my job, right? I'm able to do all my assessments, especially when I'm paired with a specific nurse. Bernie Burns, massive shout out. He's never gonna listen to this podcast. He's an old Filipino dude, but he loves
Triage
teaching
is,
me.
on a side note, triage is a perfect place to learn your like 10-second assessment. Someone walks
Exactly.
in the
Mhm.
door, you can go, "Oh, you're fine," or "Holy shit, we need to get
Exactly.
you to a
You're
room
the
right
patient
now."
presentation is what's gonna tell you what the fuck is going on most of the time.
On a side note,
Super
miss our
sad note.
Burns. But anyway.
Yeah,
Burns,
Burns, come
Burns,
back.
Burn.
Burns.
We
I
miss
know
you.
Burns.
Mm,
Thank you. Burns is
miss
amazing.
you.
I miss you. I haven't seen you for a couple of years, but we're going into, this patient came in. She hit her head on the, you know how like you have cabinets that you like overhead cabinets and you like, pop
Yep.
up sometimes. So she hit her head and then it was like yesterday. And she came in just light headache, some nausea, vomiting. And her presentation was normal. It looked normal, but her vital signs indicated something else. She was hypertensive in the 170s. She was tachycardic and she was running a fever, right? So that like makes my mind
Mm.
boggle. I'm like looking at the triage nurse and I'm like, that's such a weird presentation, especially vital wise, because that meets sepsis protocol as well. That
Yeah, she
hypertension.
looks fine, but her vitals are all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, let me retake this just in case. And it was still high. It was still hypertensive. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, she's tacky and she has a fever. She's meeting she's meeting some criteria for sepsis, at least the sepsis protocol. And then I'm like, something just felt off. Like, I was like, something is either wrong with her and she's hypertensive. Could, that hit in the head cause some type of clot to be there. I don't know, but she wasn't doing any stroke-like symptoms. I mean, she was discharged really quickly, but I mean, I just that mindset of like, what the fuck is going on with this patient? I
Like
feel like
if it doesn't meet some sort of typical criteria, that sets off alarm bells, and that's a good thing as a provider because you're like, hey, this patient looks like they're okay, but their vitals are messed up. Something is going on. Their
yeah,
body is saying something's wrong.
exactly, because a fever indicates that you're trying to fight off your body's trying to burn off some type of infection, whatever. It's fighting something, right? It goes into this defense mode, and you guys can definitely elaborate on this because I'm paraphrasing right now. But a fever, you're tachycardic, you're hypertensive. That means your pulse pressure is really fucking close, and
Not necessarily.
yeah,
There are some brain injuries, especially in bleeds and herniations. Obviously, this wasn't that because she got
yeah,
discharged, but
she had discharge.
uh, what was it? Cushing's triad, I believe.
Yes, I
Straight
remember
from memory,
that.
widening pulse pressures and like all that stuff factors into this. That is a very, very late sign of significant brain injury and potential herniation.
We
Like,
had a patient a long time ago. He was a brain bleed Cushing's. I think it's Cushing's triangle, and his pulse pressure
yeah, Cushing's triad.
was it widened or like what are we looking for
Widened
Cushing?
pulse pressure. So
Yeah,
they're
widened pulse pressure.
hypertensive.
Yeah,
So their top numbers way up there in like 170, 180, 190,
yeah,
but their bottom number is still way down in the 60s.
exactly.
So you
So
can, if you get them early enough, you'll see it. Like they'll
yeah,
be normal, and then the top number starts going up, and the bottom number starts going down.
yeah. I remember I was with this nurse. Like this patient became a 1-to-1 for nursing and for sitter. So I was actually really happy to be sitting for this guy because his pulse pressure was widened. He had a subarachnoid bleed. He was like alert, then he won't be alert, and it's just like he was changing so much. He was braiding down and then going into like a bigeminy rhythm, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Like, and it's just all these things going on, and I was like one of the best learning experiences I ever had with some type of brain bleed. And now I look at that Cushing's triangle and I try to like determine like what the hell's going on. Shout out to Heather. She was a traveler. She was amazing. She taught me everything that day. But yeah, Cushing's triangle. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Jack. Go on, Dan.
Yeah.
It's Cushing's triad.
Cushing's
Keep
triad.
saying
Oh, I
triangle,
don't know why I said
not the
triangle.
triangle.
What is
Triangle.
Irregular
Cushing's triad?
respirations and widened pulse pressure.
Yeah,
I
regular.
need to look it up because I don't remember off the top of my
Why
head.
am I bringing up triangle? There's
1:30 in the morning.
another thing and another anagram or something we use for
There's
triangle.
There's
so
so
much.
many
Anagram is also
triads and
not the right
triangles and
word.
other things. Like it's hard to piece
It
them all
really
together.
just it all
sometimes.
blends together at the end of the day.
You know
But
what
yeah,
else blends together? Technology.
But I mean,
And that's why
without
this episode is not.
we really went on a tangent on this one, but I mean, like,
and that's fun. It's
no,
a freeform
it's
podcast.
a freeform podcast, and we really hit a lot of like fun
A
points
lot of
today.
it's like a lot of what we talked about is technology based. There's technology in place to help all of this.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like ultimately the details we're talking about is us and what we're doing with this technology, not based on this technology.
Exactly.
You
So
can look at your monitor all day long, and if you don't have the background to understand what's going on with your patient, you're just looking at numbers.
Exactly.
that
That's it.
monitor shows squiggles of a heart that indicate normal sinus or AFib, but unless you know how to read that, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. I mean, I
I'm
think
sure
getting
you've seen this, Dan, 100 times before, at least. But like,
But
you look at a monitor and it's saying AFib, and you're looking at it and you're like, "That's definitely a flutter." Or you're looking at
most
yeah,
that is literally most of our monitors. You look at it and it's like it's beeping,
it's
VTAC,
beeping
and you're like,
AFib
it's
or
not
beeping
VTAC,
VTAC.
or it says normal sinus, and you're like, wait a minute, that looks like they're in AFib
you
right
need
now.
to
What
look at the
happened?
rhythm. That's it. Like your rhythm will tell you everything.
Technology is great, but it is not the fail. It kind of is a fail safe,
You
but at the same
have to
time, it's
know
not
what
fail
you're
safe.
doing. Like,
Exactly.
technology is fantastic, but you have to have the skills and knowledge to back it up.
And like,
Epic we switched
yeah,
to is great in so many aspects, but there is still aspects that we are trying to get changed that we're,
And there are still
as
limitations. The
there's
computer
yeah,
always
cannot
yeah.
tell you
as a
everything.
human
Yeah,
being, we make a better judgment call than some of
some
this
computer.
technology
Yeah.
can do.
I mean, and that makes like for me, like I'm always grateful to have gotten my dysrhythmia or like my arrhythmia certification, where I'm able to, and actually hit me like the last couple of shifts where I'm like, that's a PVC, like this guy's in a bigeminy rhythm, and I hit the EKG and I showed it to the doctor, he looks like he's bigeminy. He's like, yeah, he is. And this patient was that seizure patient that we had that was a COI patient. I think we talked about it. I don't know, we talked about a lot, but it's just like, you know from and I have to say this from a tech standpoint, and the techs listening to this, get your dysrhythmia cert. Even some hospitals out here in California require you to have your ACLS and PALS.
Nurse,
Like,
doctor, EMT tech, like whatever certification, whatever stuff you hold, keep going for that higher level. Like,
exactly.
keep learning. I was fortunate enough when I was doing BLS that we had a paramedic unit based out of our station, and I worked the night shift then. I would work 6P to 6A, and they would just come out of their little closet that we had for them and sit at the table with us and just talk to us about shit. And they
Exactly.
taught me so much stuff Like, not only on calls when we would go together, but, like, just sitting there. They'd tell me about ACLS, and they'd tell me about medications and IVs and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm so fortunate for that.
Oh
And
no. Yeah.
that's every time, like, I have an EMT student or a medic student or a new nurse or whatever in the hospital, I'm like, "Yeah, you see that? This is what that means. Like, this rhythm, like, this is normal sinus," and I'll draw down on a piece of paper. "This is what it looks like. And you see that rhythm? This is what that means."
This is
And
torsades. Just kidding.
besides, you need to do something right now
Yeah,
about that.
you know, you need to know like your 5 lethal rhythms, like, and I mean, I am so grateful to have these like from nurses like Dan in my old hospital to nurses now, like, you know, they
Shout out
teach
to
me
Dan.
everything. Shout out to Dan. Oh,
Yeah,
he's on the
Dan.
podcast.
Oh, hey.
But like being able to, because some hospitals in California require you to have ACLS as an EMT to work in the ER. My dysrhythmia
Which
cert
I
is almost
like.
up. So I'm going to get my ACLS and PALS instead of having my dysrhythmia because it's better
It's a higher
upkeep.
level of
Yeah,
education, and
exactly.
it will serve you better.
Exactly.
And
It not only
every time
takes
I
it not
get,
only
like,
takes that lower level of learning, but it adds a new layer, so you're not only
you
have
you're
that,
not
like,
just doing
standard,
something
but
because you
you're
see
better.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not shocking because you see this rhythm. You understand what's behind it. Like
Exactly.
torsades or like something like that. Like, you understand instead of just shock 'em and push magnesium because that's what we do for this. You understand it's an electrolyte imbalance. You have to correct that if you want to actually fix the problem.
Exactly. I mean,
And
it goes down to like, you know, I'm always asking questions like, especially like a YQRS complex, like that's like indication of hyperkalemia, high potassium, right? Or it
yep,
could be either or depending. So, you know, I'm always asking these questions and I'm like, what? Because now that I see a YQRS complex while I'm doing an EKG, I'm like, this patient might have
they have some sort of electrolyte imbalance,
imbalance.
like their
Yeah.
potassium's up or something else is fucked up. Like,
Exactly. Or if we're pushing amiodarone, that's an antiarrhythmic. Like all these things that I have learned from being in the ER for God knows for the last 3-4 years, especially I mean, I can see it benefiting me in nursing school. That's it. But also as an EMT, and I say this to any ER tech out there, and even any box guys, any 911 guys, get your dysrhythmia cert, get an ACLS and PALS class, pay that $400 for it, and it will help nurses. It will help everyone. You're just being a better asset in the
and
emergency meal field.
don't think you're hot shit just because you're making a paycheck. Like, there's always something else to learn. And like,
Exactly.
you go to the high end of any service, it's your transport nurses and doctors, it's your flight crews. Like, you sit an hour in a room with a flight nurse or flight medic, and like, you won't even realize they're teaching you so much stuff until you walk out of the room. You're like, I knew nothing about, anything,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
spend 20 minutes talking to this one guy who's been doing this for 30 years and is flying on a helicopter. I'm like, I didn't even know how much I didn't know, but now I have so much stuff to look into.
Yeah, there's so much stuff to learn, and it goes back, and we talked about this last podcast. It just goes back to you wanting to learn. You know, if you're going into nursing school, if you're going into medic school, just learn everything you can from these people because it will give you an edge and it'll give you the right frame of mind to help your future patients out. Because, like, determining a rhythm in the ER, if the monitor tech is busy, because our monitor tech is also the unit secretary, you're able to look at a rhythm and like, hey, this patient, you know, the seizure patient again, the CWA patient I mentioned again, his rhythm initially was multiple NSR with multiple PVCs. Then I went down to an occasional PVC, and then I brought up to nurse, hey, this guy looks like he's in bigeminy. He looks like he's having multiple PVCs again. We brought it up, and that was like a sure shot sign. For some odd reason, every time he went into that rhythm, he had another seizure. So we started like watching all that, and I was like going back and forth with the nurse, learning all this shit, making sure that my rhythm checks were on point. And you know, we did another EKG. His PVCs got cleaned up. You know, doc was like all that. But overall, just learn. Just keep on learning. Have that yearning to learn.
I think Dan needs to get off, but
Well, I mean, we did.
I'm
We
just checking the time. I
Final
have to use the
thing.
bathroom, man. I'm gonna be honest.
I gotta go to the bathroom too. But
One final thing I have to put in, like,
Yeah.
if you think you know everything, if you think it's time, like you're done learning stuff, it's time to get out of the profession. Every day is a new day to learn, and if you say I know enough, get out before you hurt or kill somebody.
Exactly. It's
In the
called
healthcare
practicing medicine.
industry, in the healthcare industry, you never stop learning. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter how great you are, how top of the top you are, you never stop learning.
exactly. I mean, that's what it is. It's practicing medicine. We're always learning. There's always continuing education, and that's what it is. That's the profession we're in. But
That's why
guys,
it's called
there's a
practice.
fine-
practice.
Yes. And there's a fine balance between you and that technology, but ultimately, it's going to be up to you.
Anyways, guys, we are about, a good hour, 15 minutes in to this podcast. I just want to thank you guys for coming in, taking out of your time to listen. This one was a very fun podcast. We got very lively with it. And, well, the Nightlife Podcast, of course, shows on every Sunday, debuts Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Almost every Sunday.
Almost every Sunday. We're going to be better at that. About 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube, and all your other streaming podcasts, platforms, all that fun stuff. We have a fun guest next week, so tune in next week as we have Dr. Carl Swanson on to talk about some of the stuff he does. But anyways, my name is Kevin.
I'm Dan. Can't wait to talk to you guys again.
I'm Jack. Peace.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Nightlife Podcast. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Adios.